Go.
All right, Anya, thanks so much for doing this. My first question that I have for you is tell the audience, just a little bit about yourself and like how you started in the counseling realm.
Yeah, absolutely. So I come from kind of a funny background. I went to art school. I was in fine arts growing up. I ended up moving to New York for fashion school. I studied menswear design. And when I moved to LA to start working for a surf apparel brand, I just realized that like something wasn't right for me. And I just had a lot of despair. I was pretty depressed. I was like low. And I had a friend tell me about this self-development course that she thought was really meaningful called MITT. This was like 10 years ago or 9 years ago. And that day changed my life. And for the first time in my life, I was asking myself, what do I really want? Am I happy with the way my life is? What can I do about it? What do I believe about myself that is not actually working out so well for me? Is it true, all the things that I believe about myself? And I started asking all these questions, and I went on a path and I started to get counseling myself. And then I started to be mentored by different people. I went through a long healing journey, kind of healing some of those inner beliefs that were holding me back from just being myself. And it was so painful internally for me. I tell people like I felt like I was in a prison without being in a prison internally. And so all that to say, I became really, really interested and dedicated to that to the point where I realized, okay, this is what I have to do in my life. I have these gifts of being able to show people how to do what I did, kind of get out of that depression and anxiety. And so I started to learn, I started to do certifications and coaching and mentorships, and I kind of all brought me to where I am today, which is specializing in working with men and helping men through their inner pain such that they can break free and really use their gifts and feel alive in the world.
hmm And why work with that demographic? What made you decide to work with men in particular?
It's quite interesting. I don't know if this has ever happened to you or just in general other people. I imagine you make a lot of plans in life and you take these very specific actions. But when you look back, you kind of realize certain things happened quite serendipitously. And you're like, wow, that was interesting. I can't believe that ended up that way. And so I realized, I was encouraged to study menswear design because I was really good at that. I was like, why am I focusing on menswear design? And then I didn't put two and two together. And so then I had a menswear collection where I launched a clothing line for men. And I had a lot of turmoil with my own father. And so by healing that and kind of coming to the other side of what that was like for me, I just realized that I have this gift of helping men in a way that is really meaningful. And I'm able to hold space for men um, in the way that they need, such that they can heal. And I just, at a certain point, I just stopped wondering why this gift was given to me, and I started implementing it. And so it's just something that I feel really called to do. And for me, if my dad had had that earlier on in life, then maybe my life would have been different. I wouldn't have had such a negative experience with my dad growing up. But they say that your pain translates to your purpose, and so that was definitely a pain point in my life that became a purpose.
That's great. So I saw a couple of your videos on your YouTube channel.
Mm,
They're very great, to be
thank you.
honest. And what are some of the because you talk about a lot of great themes, but what are some of the your favorite sort of topics that you like to uh dive further on your channel?
Yeah. So my channel, thank you for sharing that with me. I really appreciate that feedback. I It's called Ancient Intelligence. And my whole kind of mantra is that the modern world is great in many ways, but in a lot of really important ways, we have lost it. We have like lost the tune, we have lost the point, And we really need to tap back into our ancient intelligence and our spiritual center, and also that specific ancient intelligence that brings man and woman together. And so, whatever religion you are, whatever you believe in spiritually, I personally find myself very grounded and centered in that God made man and woman. Man is one side of God, woman is another side of God, and both man and woman are made in the image of God, and we're meant to be together and be collaborators and be complements to each other. And so that is just a foundational belief that I have. And so much of what we see in modern culture and politics and gender wars and all of this stuff is the exact opposite of this foundational truth. So, my intention with the podcast is to talk about the flow of yin and yang energies, the masculine, feminine together, the ways that we're really missing each other as men and women, and how we can find each other in more meaningful ways, how we can come together, and how we can just have more love for the opposite sex instead of frustration and misunderstanding, which is so much of our culture. And that's my intention. One of my real dreams is to support teenagers in this in a really age appropriate way, right? Like coming into schools and um, like homeschooling environments, even and pods of teenagers, and just showing them from the beginning, like, hey, you don't have to be afraid of the opposite sex. Let's connect now and let's understand what's happening here such that we can see each other in the best light and give each other what we need so that we can be happy and healthy in partnership later down the line when we're ready to get married and have families.
That's an interesting point because there's a particular movie, I don't know if you've seen it, it's called The Ugly Truth. And, the characters themselves, they talk about, oh, women are so this or men are so that. And it kind of gives an example of what you just talked about.
Yeah. I love that. No, I haven't seen that movie, The Ugly Truth. I'm gonna write that down. The Ugly Truth. I'm gonna have to check it out. It's like you and me, we're different, but foundationally we're human, but we have a lot of differences that are really meaningful and really important and instilled in us by God, such that we can use them in ways that are important and meaningful. So why would we not support that in each other? And what are those things, right? No one can seem to agree what those things are right now. So it's what I love to discuss.
hmm So, like, when for this- based on your previous answer that you gave, where men and women have to understand each other, could you like give an example of what that would look like? Because immediately what comes to me is, relationships. Because oftentimes, people are in a relationship, there's miscommunication.
Yeah.
One person wants one thing, another person wants another thing. So,
Yeah. Yeah, it's so awesome. Such a great question. I love that. Um, really, really important little things that are small, and then other really important things that are quite big. Um, I feel that God has given man this like big picture thinking power where he can just kind of like put the emotions aside and see the big picture of some initiative or endeavor or family goal or whatever. And so, as women, we need to remember, okay, he has that big picture thinking. So, if he says no to something I want, he must have a really good reason for saying no, right? Because he has my best interests at heart and he has the big picture sorted out, right? And that's a big difference between men and women. Whereas God gave women this incredible, magical sense for intuition and reading the room and picking up on energies and where people are at in the moment. And so men can look at women and say, oh, she's telling me that person's not a good idea to talk to. I don't really see it, but you know what? I'm going to trust her because I trust her intuitive capabilities. Because I know that God gave her those intuitive capabilities to really just help me in my life, right? And if we start to see things that way, and that's kind of a macro, a little micro moment is like, men really love to do things one step at a time. Men are really focused. So it's like they're really hyper focused on one thing and then they move on to the next thing. Whereas women, we don't really do that. We kind of multitask at many things at one time. And it's one of those things where we've just got to say, okay, God gave man that ability so that he could get certain things done in a way that is meaningful for him. Let's support him in that. Let's not interrupt him. And then God gave woman the ability to, be with a child, talk to someone else, like cook dinner all at the same time so that she could keep relationships intact, right? Let's love that in women. Let's nurture that in women. Let's support that in women. So that's kind of what I mean by how can we understand each other and what we need on like a big and a small scale.
Mm-hmm. Because like because I don't know if you've gotten like feedback from your audience viewers on your YouTube channel, but like what have they said, based on like stuff your content that you've given, or like have they sort of reached out to you and said, "Hey, I really like that you did this or that."
Yeah, absolutely. I think that probably the biggest thing that shoots just out into my mind is the love and support and kindness that I give to men and just the masculine in general. I know that's not something that is commonly heard from women these days. Um, I don't think it's because women don't love men. I think it's just because the women that are platformed and the narrative that's out in culture is the one that's loudest. I think myself and lots of my female friends and in our circles, we do our best to support and honor and respect the men in our lives for being men and for what they need and how they live life and how they think. So I think the audience is just really um, happy to finally be seen and understood and heard in that way. And then I'd say the second thing is just my um, ability to empathetically talk about what's not working instead of calling people out and being mean and being like, oh, it's his fault or it's her fault, and just really doing my best to paint the picture and talk about solutions instead of problems.
Mm-hmm. What have you learned in doing this not only this YouTube channel, but also your sort of private practice and your work with men? Because you've said that at the beginning.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So yeah, these both of these things are kind of in tandem in my life, and my intention for this year is to grow both of those spaces. Um, you know, one thing that I've just overwhelmingly heard from my clients is I've just never been given such direct feedback in such a loving way. And that is really meaningful. And I've heard from my clients, like, no one's ever just, you know, appreciated me or seen me or given me the space to be myself and develop myself with no judgment. That's something that's been really meaningful to hear from clients. Um, One of my clients started seeing me when he was single, and his big goal was to find and magnetize his dream woman. And 9 months later, he was engaged. So it was really meaningful to experience him just kind of going from kind of small and trying to play the dating game and just tips and tricks and all that stuff to really finding his personal power and exuding that into the world. And with my support, he was able to do that. So those are kind of the things within the coaching space. And then, um, yeah, on the podcast, I've learned how important this dialogue is, and I've just learned how hungry people are for this kind of bridge that I'm trying to build with my channel and my work and ancient intelligence in general.
Hmm. I want to
Yeah.
get your take on this because I was talking to a friend of mine about this a couple of weeks ago, and he said that in order to find the right person, you have to love yourself first. What's your take on that?
Yeah, that's a really beautiful way to say that. Simple as that. I totally agree with you. Um, I think when God sees that you're ready to go on a path to finding your truest self, he's gonna he's gonna have love kind of elude you. He's gonna make it a little hard for you because he knows what you're willing to go through and he knows what your heart really desires. I think when people say, "Well, oh, I'm single and I haven't met my person yet and it's really hard and it's not working," and they see other people in relationships, I remind them, um, just because they're in relationships doesn't mean those are good relationships. Doesn't mean those are meaningful. Doesn't mean those are working well. And if it's not working out for you, but you have this like inner knowing that you have this desire for something meaningful and fulfilling, you're gonna have that. And what's in the way of you and having that is just exactly what you just said, the lack of love you have for yourself. So God keeps making things not work out. He keeps messing things up so that you can come back to yourself and you can keep doing work on you and just really rooting into like your beauty and your greatness in the world. Because we all have that. And if we don't feel that, then we were wounded as children. And it's really an attachment issue. It's an issue that we have with our parents and with our caregivers, and it's something we need to kind of work through internally, both, in my opinion, with coaching and therapy, which is what I do, and a real grounding and some spiritual practice. Those two things together is really what is going to help anyone.
Hmm. What do you still hope to learn in terms of like a new subject, or how would you want to expand what you're talking about right now? Is there like a new sort of branch that you want to dive into with your YouTube channel, with your private practice, or?
So interesting. Yes. Okay. So I'm actually currently putting together, it's almost done. It'll be ready for the summer. I'm putting together a group program within my private practice. And so it's something that I don't know about your listeners, but definitely when people ask me what's been most effective for you in your growth process, I always say it's a group container. Those types of things are amazing, where you sign up for like a 3-month experience and it's all about, breaking through your boundaries, getting rid of your, negative beliefs. We're not getting rid of them, but like shifting them. And maybe it's like fitness included and like just self-development and self-help and doing all of that with the group of people that are also doing all that and then getting group coaching every week and having assignments and just like really devoting yourself to a self-development season. That's something that I really believe in and I'm putting that together for men in my community and I'm excited to launch that. So that's going to be launching very soon. And within the podcast, I want to bring in just different takes on relationship, right? Because I've heard a couple of different people talk about like why they're doing what they're doing. And so like there's the guy who does the podcast about founders. And so for him, he's like, this is church for people that, really are interested in founders and CEOs and entrepreneurs. And then someone else will do something about self-development. And so for me, I was thinking, well, what if my channel was the church of something, what would it be? And for me, it's really the church of relationships between men and women. That's it. And so in that case, I would love to have some couples on the show that I really vibe with to talk about some things. Um, I'd love to talk more about some of my interests and how I think they relate to men and women and relationships, including like salsa dancing. I think that's really a big thing. And yeah, just getting a little more into like my goal is to blend kind of like the spiritual with the really real, rational, data-driven world we live in. And how do I blend those two things together? And that's really my mission with Ancient Intelligence. Like it's it's not for the woo-woo, and it's also not for the atheist. It's for the person that is really ready to see the divine and understand that there's something beyond them in this world and be connected to God and is living in this rational, logical world where we have data to look at and we have culture and we have politics and we have all of that. So that's kind of my mission to blend those two.
Hmm. as kind of a wrap up, how does your work, not just as a mental health counselor, but as a YouTuber, doing all these videos, how can this sort of help people, but particularly those who are struggling with relationships or who have come out of really bad relationships, don't know where to
Yeah.
go?
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. Man, I get it. I just want to say, like, I get it. Relationships has been such a struggle in my life, and that's why I'm doing this. It's like I have been like perennially single in my 20s. I would go on date after date, and I just nothing would work. And I was like, what am I doing wrong? And then I would attract people that weren't great for me. And I was just like, at a certain point, I was like, what's happening here? And there's a really, really meaningful answer to that question if you're willing to sit and be single and not fill the space with a new person just because it's convenient and just kind of come to the channel and be open to learning both about what men really are looking for, what women are actually really looking for, what it looks like when men and women are wounded, right? So like I had a lot of abandonment wounds growing up emotionally. So that made me like kind of a needy woman in my early 20s. That's not sexy. If you think about with men, like, men that have issues when their dad's not around or their mom is not giving them love, they have sometimes a lot of abandonment issues or worthiness issues, and then they become needy. And then on the flip side, there's a lot of like people that had caretakers leave and just leave them all alone, didn't even care about them. And so those people have a lot of trust issues. So they won't let people in. They're the opposite of needy. They're super cold and detached and they get really dysregulated in relationships. And all of these things just kind of point us back to what's happening within ourselves and what's blocking us from our real innate, like true way of being, which is love and connected to God and not worried about what others think of us. And so that is all what I go through on my channel. That is all what I'm trying to help people understand. And all this is just to kind of bring us back to this kind of like what I said at the beginning. God made man and woman, and he made us to be, complements of each other and all the stuff that all the tension that is between us and all the stuff that goes wrong is stuff that we can really look in the mirror and kind of look back at ourselves because it's like a me issue. It's not a them issue ever. And so that's kind of what I go through on my podcast and in my coaching, and I really kind of bring people home to your innate gifts as a man or woman. What are those?
Yeah, it's always that phrase that is not that doesn't really sit well, like it's not you, it's me. It's kind of hard to fathom for some people.
It's so true, right? That's a perfect way to say that, Laszlo. It's like it's if you just flip that in every scenario, you're just like, it's not them, it's definitely me. So it's like even on the road, if you're driving in traffic and someone like, upsets you or whatever, it's really not them, it's you. So,
Yeah.
yeah. I love
Yeah,
it.
hey,
That's awesome.
yeah, it's not it doesn't sit well
I know
with
that's
me.
right.
All right.